Okay, so this is a bit of a surprise live stream. Dr. Anthony Llewellyn, the career doctor. I just thought I was wanting to do a video because I get lots of questions about, can you post a link to X on my vlog and sometimes blog site? And often I'm saying to people, well, actually, first thing is, if you look at any of my videos, there's a bunch of links in the description below. So if we go to the Career Doctor channel, so I know a lot of you guys kind of watch videos and um, live on Facebook a bit, but just to point out, the first thing, if you're looking for some good resources, well, often I take a bit of time. Usually I put chapters and things on the video sometimes as well, but you can see there's links to the relevant blog posts and how you can get some of the paid services and other blog posts and related videos, etc. So before you ask me a question in the chat on YouTube or comments on YouTube, maybe have a look through there. Maybe also have a look through some of my other videos. I'm up to about 300 videos. Excuse me if you can hear my dog snorting in the background. Um, and if anyone's watching, if you can just let me know in the chat that you can hear me okay and that you can see me in the chat. You should be able to see me either on Facebook or YouTube, and I've got this little nifty chat message thing here. So if you want to ask me any questions, I'm going to be online for about maybe 45 minutes to an hour, just going through a bunch of resources. So first place you can find linked to resources is in the comments or the description of the video. So that's just kind of worth noting. And also, then people ask me, well, how can I get in touch with you, Anthony? Well, I've got a website which I'll show you shortly. There's many ways of getting in touch with you. But if you're not really overly familiar with YouTube, um, everybody who publishes on YouTube has kind of a channel. And on their channel, you can see I've got videos here. So I try and kind of organize these for you. So these are all my videos. But if you go to the home page, then you can see I'm going live at the moment. There's interview questions and tips, how to apply for a job in medicine, how to interview, finding a job in Australia. I often get asked, oh, can you post something about how to find a job in Australia? Well, there's quite a few posts about that. So that's on my channel page. Playlists, these are ones I've created, and then there's a community section where I'll occasionally post some information. But if you go to the About page, you can find there that you can get my email address if you click here. I'm not going to do that because there might be a bot watching at the moment. But so that's the first thing. So people ask me, oh, in the comments of the videos, can you send me an email to so and so email address? Well, no. There's so many ways of finding me. I'm not. If you just ask me to email you back, I'm not going to do that. You can find me that way. Um, and then the other ways you can find me is obviously via the website. So this is the main blog site, the Career Doctor page. Hey Noaf, how you doing there? Um, nice to nice to see you, Noaf. Noaf did a guest post for us a little while ago, which I'm very thankful. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, please invite the others. It's an in. I don't know. I'm typing here. You can hear me. Promptu live stream. Um, yeah. So there's the blogs. The main blog page, which I'm constantly updating. So here's the second way you can get in contact with me. There's a little chat bot there where you can ask questions, etc. Um, so that's one way to get some of your questions answered. Um, and then on this page, you can see I've got various posts organized. So like if you wanted some posts that just relevant to IMGs, you can filter for that. You can subscribe to our newsletter there. And then I think some testimonials there. And then down the bottom, there's a link to contact us, which will take you to, I hope this works, a contact page where you can send, and I think a lot of people find this because I get a few messages, maybe 2 or 3 a week. Thanks, Noaf. So you can hear me okay? It's great. Are you watching? Oh, you're on Facebook. I can tell you're on Facebook. All right. So we're live streaming to Facebook and YouTube using some pretty fancy technology. So that's the main contact points on that site. Now this little chat bot is kind of there to kind of answer main questions and try and guide you. If you're finding it's not answering the question you want, then I reckon you're probably needing more detailed answers around your questions. And this is where I would sort of recommend booking a call with me via one of my strategy calls. But I just wanted to point out, we've obviously got a link through to the videos, which is the YouTube channel. We'll come back to the question bank and some of the other things. But over here on the right-hand side, I've got a couple of links under support here. And the main one is International Doctors Australia resources. So I just wanted to spend a bit of time going through that because, again, people ask for links and things, and I do my best particularly in the videos. Hey, Siddharth, nice to see you this afternoon. Just an impromptu live stream. If you've got any questions, just whack them in the chat. Excuse me, my dog just went under my legs there. So this is the main page for International Doctor Resources. So again, I put this together particularly for IMGs. You can see here you can join the Facebook group, which Nawaf's in. And if the page loads a bit slowly, it's because I've tried to put all my relevant videos up here from YouTube so you can find them in one handy spot as well. But again, you can see you can subscribe to the newsletter. And if you subscribe to that one, you'll get, I'll try and make sure you get particularly information that's relevant to international doctors. Bunch of videos here, finding job pathways, etc. I've spent a bit of time recently, re-updating this page and getting things and making sure that all the links are correct. But if you do find something that's not correct, please let me know. You can do so via the little chat here. And that's my continually chat. Again, you can send me a message that way. So yeah, bunch of videos, link back through to the channel for more videos. I've been doing a thing at the moment. If you're a doctor from one of the competent authority countries, I'm doing a thing where you can do a free call with me about working in Australia. Cool, we've got a question there from Siddharth. I'll come back to that in a sec. I might just go through this page and then I'll come back to your question. And if you're not eligible for the free call, then you can book one of my strategy calls. So that's $197 Australian. I often get asked if it's US dollars or Australian. Well, I am in Australia, so it's Australian dollars. All my prices are in Australian dollars. I highly recommend this. It's basically, if you don't feel like you get your value, I'll give you money back anyway. So far, no one has asked for their money back. So I think it's a really good option. Like I find on the blog, gets lots of questions on the blog or the video channel, and usually gets to the point where your situation is pretty particular and it needs some more in-depth explaining of some of the concepts, particularly around the medical board, the Australian Medical Council. So that's what that strategy call's for. It's to get some one-on-one time with me. I do a lot of free stuff, obviously, but this is my living. So at a certain point, if you really want the in-depth advice, you do have to pay for it. But that call is high value. I can assure you, I've got lots of testimonials around that. So you can ask questions about the registration process, your CV, where to look for jobs, what your strategy should be, pathways, etc., etc. Some links to some other handy services that you might want to check out as part of your prep. And then we've got the links to the medical board, the Australian Medical Council, and those sort of things. Then links to employment portals. So these are the main ones you want to bookmark and go to when you're looking for your first job as an IMG in Australia. Hi there, Rakesh. You've got a question there as well, so I will promise to come back to that. And hey, Eric. The other one that I recommend is Seek. Now, Seek's kind of a main aggregation portal for jobs in Australia, but I've set this up. I think it should work. I've set this up so that if you click on, the link here, that should take you through to, so I've set it up so that the keywords are healthcare and medical, so that at least drills down a little bit for you. You still have to then go and look a bit further, but and you can see that popped up a psychologist one there, which shouldn't be coming under medical, but this is the way people post jobs sometimes, or medical receptionist. So there you go. So so they're the main places you can find the jobs online. The various state and territory jobs portals and Seek. That's the places I recommend that you sign up for and for alerts for and look out regularly. And then for if any of the specialists, the links kind of stuff below this is more for those on the specialist pathway. So links to the college pages about specialist assessment. There's a blog post I've written about that as well, which I should probably add in here somewhere. Links to medical recruitment companies, which I don't tend to recommend to IMGs on the standard pathway. You won't get much response from them, and really only come into favour when you're a specialist IMG who's got a good chance of comparability or even gone through the comparability stages, but they're listed there. And if you've ever got questions about medical recruitment companies, please ask me about those as well. I'm happy to try and direct you better for that. Small links to services, a bit of information about applications for the specialist pathway. I did this a while ago, so from the 2017 report, we've had 2 years of reports since then, but I've only got so much time to update things. Area of need links, I really should probably take this off because I think area of need is pretty much a unicorn these days. And then these are relevant to standard pathway doctors as well, but some information about the various specialties and what's in demand, etc. And then some links to some of my partners. So that's the resource page. Look, I'd love to put it on the top banner, but I think it's reasonably prominent. But I'm just pointing out it is there because I get a lot of questions from people asking for the links. So I thought this video might help with that. So I've got a few other things I want to show you, but I noticed I've got quite a few questions here. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. So I might take Sedant's question. Now, there is some way I think can pop this up on the screen. I don't know if I just pull it over here, maybe? No. No. Okay, we won't try mucking around with that too much. So Sedan's question is, I've just finished my MBBS from India and want to pursue dermatology residency in Australia. Can you guide me about that? I think you might have contacted me on one of my blog posts about this. So I would recommend you go through a bunch of my videos. I would recommend firstly that you go through all the videos about the process of applying for jobs in Australia, particularly the one on standard pathway, because that's where you need to start. And really, to get into any training in Australia, you need to have gone through one of these IMG pathways to be registered. And with your MBBS in India, just recently, it's the standard pathway. I might just change over to there. So what I would recommend is you go through those videos, understand the process, and then really what you need to do is go through the standard pathway, obtain general registration. So that involves doing the AMC exams and getting your first job, etc. And then you've got to apply for dermatology training. You probably want to be a permanent resident as well, so I don't know how old you are, that affects things. But it's pretty competitive getting into dermatology in Australia. There's not that many training spots. It's on a par with a lot of the surgical training schemes. So Yeah, I'm just going to write here. I recommend you start by watching the standard pathway videos. And so, question from Rakesh. I just finished Master of Surgery in ENT and the DNB in ENT. Can I find jobs? Please advise. So, Rakesh, you want to go to the videos about specialist pathway, which will be here. I think I've got a list of them. No, they only allow you to add so many. Um, Maybe here playlists. Um, yeah, specialist pathway is the one you want to look at. I'm just you. This is still a work in progress. Sorry, you guys are waiting for number 6 and 7, and there'll probably be more at the end of the day. But you want to go through that video series. But I will let you know, master surgery and the DMB is probably going to help. But a lot of IMG doctors from India struggle because about the length of training. So I'm assuming your master surgery was 3 years, and then you can count your DMB on top of it. You're probably it's hard. It's always like this is where the things like the strategy call are useful to go into your particular circumstances. Um, it's probably you're probably looking at partially comparability from that brief synopsis, but your struggle will be actually getting a supervised position. Most surgical posts are pretty competitive in Australia again, so maybe you may find it hard, even if you get through the college process, to then get a job. So this is one of the many confusing points of the Australian system for IMG doctors, but just because you go through the college comparability assessment process doesn't mean you finish the process. The colleges don't organise a job for you to do the supervised component. You've got to find that on your own. So one thing you need to consider when you're thinking about applying to become a specialist in Australia is not just whether you think you'll get through the college process, but also whether whether you think whether you think there's a great option for you to actually get a job. And so it's often getting the job that's the hardest bit, not the college assessment or, in the case of standard pathway, doing the AMC exams. So hopefully that helps you, Rakesh. A couple of other questions. Eric, hello, I'm currently an international medical student studying at Sydney. Someone who potentially graduate from Australian medical school, what are the chances of getting an internship? Yeah, I got this question the other day on one of the videos, actually, Eric. Look, at the risk of being trolled by a bunch of medical students, when I was the medical director at Hetty in New South Wales in 2012, they're already talking about this internship crisis. I think it's probably unfair to call it a crisis because every year the data shows that international students do end up getting a job for their internship. We base that on how many vacancies are left at the end of the day, and usually in places like New South Wales, there's a few unfilled internship positions. So basically, your international students studying medicine in Australia are eligible to apply for internships, whereas most IMG doctors are not. You are at the bottom of the categories for most states and territories, or near to the bottom. But what you tend to find is if you're not overly choosy about where you do your internship, for example, if you apply for the rural internships in New South Wales, you're probably going to get an offer somewhere in Australia. But we do know that a bunch of medical students do usually go back to their own country or another country where they can do internship as well. So some when they graduate do get an opportunity elsewhere and take that up, and the rest do seem to eventually get an offer in Australia. So there's not a lot of evidence that people graduate and then don't get to complete their internship somewhere. So hopefully that answers that question. And that's been the way for a long time. And part of the thing that one of the things that sort of helped with that is the Commonwealth has stepped in with a bunch of they've called it a very long scheme now, but they used to be called the Commonwealth Medical Internships. Now they're called something else, which I can't remember. But there's about 100 odd additional places in the private system made available for international medical students, just to sort of help with that. So yeah, look, I think you will probably get one. You just might be a little bit stressed because you're waiting towards the end, and you do probably need to think about hedging your bets and um, applying in your own country. I don't know where you actually came from, but that's kind of how it works. Okay, question from Nawaf. How challenging is it to attain general registration after 47 weeks of practice? Is it very strict? Do they set the bar high? So I assume you're talking about the provisional registration going through the AMC standard pathway. Basically, it's a bunch of supervisor reports, and as long as you're okay with those supervisor reports, then the hospital will sign you off and recommend you to the medical board. I'm not aware of that. I mean, there are situations where interns struggle to get through their provisional registration, the Australian interns. So that does happen, and there are obviously some situations where IMGs coming through the standard pathway struggle in that 12 months. But it's really based on your workplace performance, essentially, I think is the answer to that. So I don't think the medical board set the bar very high. It's the employer who has to be confident at the end that they are signing you off to get general registration, so they have to be confident that you're going to be safe enough for that next step. So hopefully that answers that question there, Noaf. Now I've got a couple more questions there, but I might bank them till we go through a couple other things. So also just wanted to point out, should get the screen back up, question banks. So you find that off the website here. And we've now got over, I think it's 650 questions people contribute to this question bank, and you can filter it by question type. So, you might be after, say, resident medical officer, so you can sort of tick a couple of these, and then they kind of give you some questions. And these are all questions that have been submitted by actual doctors who've gone through an interview process. So it's a little bit like the AMC recalls. I can't vouch for whether this is exactly the question they were asked, and there are obviously some typos, so you can do with it what you want, but this gives you some examples of the types of questions you might get from different types of interviews to help you practice. Now, I always recommend that you get the job description out as well and look through the criteria, because that will give you a guide as to what questions you get. But invariably, for example, you will get, in most medical job interviews, you'll get at least one clinical scenario. So that gives you an example of the type that you might get at an RMO level. And there's a handy function here where you can actually print off your questions as well in a PDF. And then if you do go through an interview process yourself, I would encourage you to pay this forward and submit your question. Sorry about the flick. I don't know why there's a flicker there. It's something to do with the script or something. And so that helps to build up the bank for more people down the track. So that's another free service there that you can get access to. Now, something I've been building on is the AdvanceMed knowledge base. And you can see that I've got, part of this is about answering common questions about some of my services, but I've started some articles, for example, that kind of, here's one, a couple of articles about that kind of common questions about the process here in Australia. A lot of the information is all on my blog as well, but that's there as well. So if you've got questions about, courses or your account or what can you do for IMGs, etc., they're all covered here as well. That's probably not as well advertised. I probably need to put it, I reckon probably need to put it under support here, don't I? But that's there available as well. Cool. So before I get into just going over some of the services and where particular services for IMGs are on my service site, I might just have a look at the other questions we've got here. So yes, thanks Nazia. It's the Junior Doctor Internship Private Hospital Stream Program or something. I mean, goodness, some bureaucrat probably spent a lot of time coming up with that one, didn't they? I still call it the Commonwealth of Medical Internships, just to remember. So, question from Mike. Mike, I'm an IMG, and with an Australian citizenship, 8 on my IELTS. Yep, good. IMG test is in 2 months. Yep. I only have 1 year postgraduate internship. Is the lack of experience a hindrance? Um, Funnily enough, probably not, Mike. So there's a lot of pros in. I mean, again, this is one of those issues where I'd say, look, book a strategy call. We'll go into it in more detail, but I can see some winning factors for you there already. Um, Australian citizenship, that tends to put you up the ranks, as I've explained in a few videos. If there are doctors applying for a job and they're Australian citizens or permanent residents, they're meant to get the job ahead of someone who might need a visa. The IELTS is of 8 is good, so I presume you got your citizenship you became a citizen in Australia. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have needed to sit the IELTS, but yeah, 8 on IELTS is excellent. I always recommend doing much better than the pass score that the medical board sets. As an experienced recruiter myself and knowing a bunch of other recruiters, it's well known that a pass score on IELTS or an OET, not for every case, but in a lot of situations, tends to correlate with people struggling with the communication challenges in work. So if you do better, that's a kind of one of those things that employers look for on a CV. So put that high on your resume. And then your internship experience is fine. I guess the question I'd have back to you is how long has it been since you've worked? Because recency of practice might come into it. But generally speaking, there's kind of a point where employers will be a bit more reluctant to employ a more experienced doctor, so someone who's gone down a specialist route and has 15 years since they graduated, because they're looking for people who can work in general RMO jobs, so it can be a bit harder stepping back into one of those roles. Whereas if that's what you're doing or have recently done, then usually at that stage of your career you're a bit more malleable. So generally lack of experience is not such an issue at this stage. So 5 months off so far, okay. So I think you should be fine. If it was like 24 months, you'd be thinking, maybe needing to do a bit more experience, but you'd be right at this point. A related question from Noaf about the PTE. If I can get this into, I can't seem to move the restream in. I need to be in. Let me just see if I can get the chat in here. Overlays. New widget overlay, maybe? No, I think I'm gonna just spend ages trying to get that. Okay, I'll have a practice with that offline. It's a while since I've done a live stream, so I can't get the chat widget in the stream. But what was I saying? Yeah, so Noah's question is about 90 on the PTE. I forget. I think the kind of pass score is something like 80 or something like that, and then it's out of 110 or something like that. What I recommend with the PTE, because employers don't tend to see that as much as the IELTS and the OET, and they tend to know what the scores mean in those two English tests. I would put some explanation about what the 90 is, and I explain that it's above whatever the pass score for the English language requirement is, so that they get that, is my recommendation there. And then Nazia, got an interview call from the Commonwealth but could not succeed. So it sounds like you weren't eligible, unfortunately. And then Pawan, PT is marked from 0 to 90. I thought it was okay. So out of 90. So okay. So I think maybe the cutoff is like 75 or something like that. Anyway, that's excellent. So you'd say 90 out of 90. And then you would put what the minimum requirement is in brackets or something like that. Question from Pawan. Currently 50th year MBBS student from the Ukraine. What will be the path for me to move to my career to Australia? So that will be, where's my channel? The standard pathway. So again, check out particularly these videos about how to find a doctor job in Australia. Here we've got pathways to registration, standard pathway, and yeah, have a look at the English language one, which we were just talking about. Cool. So I got about, I think we had about 22 people watching at one point. So just wrapping up, and then when people sort of contact me on Facebook Messenger or whatever it is, asking where do I go for various things. Look, again, I try to make the service side of my website fairly clear. So just, often people land on the main blog site first, but you can see there's all services that take you through to the landing page for that. And I should, I'm just going to log out. And I'm going to go back to the main page because it looks slightly differently when you log in to when you log out. So the first thing is if you're looking for help for your CV and resume or other documents, that's listed under CV and resume, and you can see some of the options here. So people often wanting help to get their CV resume fixed. Generally, if you're an IMG, you're fairly, got the experience that's probably within this range of PGY 1 to 3. So that's the service for getting your resume in an employer-friendly format. I often get asked about selection criteria. So there is an option for doing that as well. Basically, I recommend you add it on to your resume redo, but in this service, I help you with addressing up to 10 selection criteria, which normally is enough for most job applications, although you do see some from places like Queensland where it's incalculable how many criteria there actually are sometimes, but New South Wales, it's no more than 8. And then if you want to make it yourself, then well, I've got to change that. The Make a Great CV course is back. The price is a little bit higher than that. Or you can try out one of the free CV builders that I recommend here. I will shortly actually have there's a sneak surprise. I've managed to connect with the Visual CV guys, and I will be releasing in the next month or so an option where you can make your own CV in Visual CV. And then I've got the ability to have access to it and help you with it or edit it even if you want me to go and do that. So, and then I'll hopefully have some custom templates just for doctors. So watch this space on that. So that's the CV options. Then usually the other area is around coaching. So all the IMG coaching stuff is here. You can kind of select whether you're a trainee, and that's the strategy call basically, or these are sessions mainly geared around helping you with your maybe last minute interview prep or more long-term proactive preparation for interviews, which is what I tend to recommend. If you're a specialist IMG, then there are a bunch of options which cover both going for jobs as well as going through this, getting your application for the specialist pathway reviewed or preparing for interviews with the colleges as well. And then if you want something all-inclusive, then there are packages. There's a trainee IMG program, which basically gets you access to all my resources plus coaching, including help with cover letters, CVs, all the courses, and my ebooks. And a similar thing available for specialist IMGs, which also includes the college comparability assessment processes as well. So that's there. So those are kind of the main things on the shop side. Of course, there's also the courses. I would highly recommend the job skills bundle. You get that in the packages as you saw. It's got my Google tag for some reason. And so I've just kind of finished the overhaul of the CVs course. So that's the second of the 3 So that's probably the best way to work through the process of applying for a job. Um, on well, not just on your own, because I'm available in all the courses to answer questions and provide my feedback as well as other people in the course too. Cool. So let's just see what remaining questions we have. Um, uh, so competition tips after doing MBBS from India and residency from USA. What is the route to Australia? Um, so there's the standard pathway route, which we've talked about. If you've done your USMLE, which I presume you would have had to. Oh, look, it's popping up all by itself now. I can see. No. um, well, I've done that automatically. You guys might be able to see the comments popping up. I don't know. So the question was, where was it now? Yeah, after doing, was I poke on that? No, does it go back in the box? Yeah. Okay. I can only seem to see the most recent one. What if I do it here? Wait for click there. Does that pop it up? No. Okay. Anyway, the question is, what's the route from the USA? So if you've done your MBBS and residency in the USA, you would have had to have done the USMLE to get into residency. Um, if My question to you, competition tips, have you done 2 years residency in an ACGM program? Because if you've done 2 years residency in an ACGME program, um, you will be eligible for the competent authority pathway, which is a much better pathway in that it's more streamlined. There's no exams. Essentially, you just have to obtain a job where they'll employ an IMG and work under supervision for 12 months. So if you've done that already, then you would be in a really sweet position to be applying for jobs here, and maybe you might want to contact me and we'll go through that a bit more in detail on a call. If you haven't done 2 years in an ACGME program, let's say you've only done one, I would suggest staying there for another year if you can, or trying to get into an ACGME residency program and doing those 2 years, because you'll avoid having to do further exams to come here. Now, there was a question about New Zealand as well that I think I skipped over. Let me just see if I can find that. No, I thought I had a question about New Zealand. If you did post a question about New Zealand, oh yes, is it easy to get residency in New Zealand as compared to Australia for an IMG? Interestingly, I went through this the other day with a coaching call actually, and one thing I like about the New Zealanders is they're much more well. Look, the medical board website's not the worst website, but sometimes it's hard to understand some of the terminology there. But if you go to the New Zealand Medical Council website, they've got this really someone's advertising on top of that. So they've got a where are we going? Somewhere here it's got IMG's registration. I think we'll click on. Yeah, not yet registered. Moving to practice in New Zealand. So there's a little self-assessment tool here, competition tips, and if you work your way through it. So in your circumstance, you did not graduate in New Zealand or Australia. I have a medical degree from the UK. No. Irish? No, I do not. Uh, I've not previously been registered in New Zealand. I do not have a postgraduate qualification. Let's say you're going for long term. I don't have formal postgraduate. specialist qualification. Don't have registration with AHPRA, which is Australian Health Practitioners Regulation Agency. Have you been yes, I've worked and been registered in one or more of these countries for 3 of the last 4 years. So it's actually tougher because for Australia it's 2 years. Let's say you've done 3 years, then you would be eligible for the comparable health system pathway. Sounds very close to the competent authority pathway, doesn't it? So there's your broad answer for your competition tips. Um, Question from Nawaf. Do you think that... Oh, are you guys seeing the comments on the stream? Can you let me know if you are? It's showing up on my end, so I'm presuming you are. Do I think getting a foundation year one internship in New Zealand is easier than a PGY 2 plus in Australia? Well, no, I think you'll find getting an internship in New Zealand is tricky as well. So usually you're going through a similar process to the standard pathway where you're getting an alternative position. There's probably a case to be made for the fact that the New Zealand REX process is maybe a little bit easier. And the thing about that is if you can get through the NZREX and get your way to general registration, then general registration from New Zealand is the same as in Australia, so you're seen equally. So, yes, sometimes New Zealand is an overlooked pathway for doctors, and it's not even in the competent authority basket because it's equal to Australia. Fun fact, the Australian Medical Council accredits the 2 medical schools in New Zealand as well as most of the colleges that do the training for Australia and New Zealand. You'll notice most of the specialist colleges here have got ANZ or Australasia in their title, and there's a reason for that. They cover New Zealand as well. Question from Busker about the AMC and PLAB. AMC versus PLAB. Which is better for an IMG who does not have Australian permanent residency? Look, I think this is a vexed question. You'll get different opinions on it, Busker. My opinion is if you want to work in Australia, do the AMC. If you want to work in the UK, do the PLAB. But I totally get that some doctors say that the PLAB is maybe a fairer assessment process and that there may be more opportunities to work after you do the PLAB. And of course, that is one of the routes. And if we go here, we've got a bit of a breakdown. That is one of the routes to working in Australia. So if you do the PLAB, get your 12-month supervised experience in Australia, in the UK, I should say, then you are eligible for the competent authority pathway here. And so there's a couple of posts here where we look at that. One is my take on whether it is an alternative, and it is. I just think it's more of a indirect route to getting to the same place. But my colleagues Nick and Kim, who run a similar blog in the UK called the Savvy IMG, I think it's called. Here's a bit of a plug for their blog, which I think is excellent. If you're looking at working in the UK, you should check these guys out. They've got courses and all sorts of support and free stuff as well. Anyway, they did a bit of a breakdown and comparison of the two, which they've got on their site as well. And so you can kind of see the eligibility requirements, the exam format, the pass rates. And I think, like one of the things that stands out here is you've got like it's about a 2/3, maybe a little bit better at times for both the 1 and 2, the clinical. Whereas we know that the AMC MCQ itself is even harder generally than the PLAB. And the clinical exam is much harder. So, there's a pro for doing the PLAB and then coming to Australia after that. I think the costs are dramatically more as well. Interestingly, the AMC will let you keep sitting the exam for as long as you want. We can all read into that what we think. So anyway, there's a big breakdown there on the website where you can have a bit more of a read and look into it. Cool. Well, look, that is all I wanted to cover. So the main message I wanted to get across is, on YouTube, just remember that in every video, I do, let's just click on that one. I do try and put a bunch of links in here to help you out. And so if you're looking for links, they're probably in the description. And the other thing I just wanted to emphasize is if we go back to my main page, particularly for IMG doctors, I've tried to collect a whole bunch of free resources and links under the International Doctors Australia Resources page, which you can find off the main page under support. Lots of help there, including all my best videos for IMGs, etc. Cool. Last question from Basco. Does doing an elective in Australia before taking AMC help in getting a job after AMC? I think the role of an observership is fairly minimal, to be honest. And yeah, look, I mean, it can help a little bit. Particularly, it probably more helps to get some contacts and some informal networks than it does to impress anyone on a CV. So I'm not against observerships. I just think probably if you've done a couple, that's as many as you need to do, and I wouldn't do any more. So thanks very much for joining me this afternoon for this impromptu live stream, guys. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications if you're watching YouTube. Follow my page on Facebook, and I'll see you in another video.